All right. Welcome to Armchair Sports Talk and DFS Tavern with Sterling and David. David, good to see you again. It's been a couple minutes, so you're a sight for sore eyes.
Definitely nice to be back. Obviously just broke down the Thanksgiving slate just a few minutes ago, and now we will start breaking down the Sunday main slate. And obviously, since it's a little early, a few days early, we're going to do it a little differently than our normal videos. We're actually going to give these people what most people are asking for, and that's actually a first look lineup build.
Perfect. That's right. So we're going to do it on DraftKings today, and David and I will take turns. We'll make some compromises, and then we'll see what a first look lineup looks like before we get some injury reports and some later breaking news this week. So I'm going to go ahead and let David start it off. He's a little more well versed in this week's action than I am, as I've been slammed at work and looking forward to relaxing with some football both Thursday and then again on Sunday. So where do you want to start us off with this week?
Yeah, definitely. Looking over this slate again, there are a lot of options to go with, but traditionally, when we talk, first look, and you want to pay up at other positions, quarterback usually, and it's kind of an industry-wide, fact that most people want to try and pay down at quarterback. And I'll admit, when I first looked at the slate, the first guy that popped into my first look lineup when I initially was doing it was Nick Foles this week at 5,700 at home against Tampa. Obviously, we know Tampa is a team that you can attack quarterbacks with. Last week, a little bit of an outlier as they really stepped up and made Atlanta look real bad. But as of today, I've kind of flipped off of Nick Foles, and the reason why is because I can go down even further. And yes, it's a bad team. They have not won a game yet, but they are at home. And Andy Dalton was just named the starting quarterback again. And at $4,700, I don't mind throwing Andy Dalton into a first look lineup. And here's the reason. Again, they're at home. The offense is not that bad. And when we look at the salary that he's at right now, 4,700, we always talk 3x value. 47, multiply that by 3, you're only looking at getting 14.1 points from Andy Dalton to give you 3x value. Look at what he's averaged in the games he did play. He averaged 18.5 fantasy points per game in the games he played, which is almost an average of 4x value. So for me, again, originally was going to go Foles, but now that Andy Dalton's been named the starting quarterback, Andy Dalton is actually where I'm looking at possibly going with my builds this week as a first look lineup build. And I know people are going to say, well, look at what the Jets defense just did last week against the Raiders, who are a much better team. That is true. But again, we mentioned this on the podcast last week. The Raiders were a West Coast team traveling all the way to the East Coast. And even though on East Coast time, it was a 1 p.m. game, on West Coast time, it was a 10 a.m. game. So I think it definitely took its toll on the Raiders going from West Coast to East Coast and essentially playing a morning game for them. And the weather also wasn't that great in that game. Now you have the Jets traveling to Cincinnati. It's kind of, neutral site. And that's the way I'm looking at it. And the one thing that you can do against the Jets, you can throw the football. You definitely cannot run on this team. They're the number one run defense in the league, but you can throw on this team. So Andy Dalton is really intriguing to me, and I think that's where I'm going to go with a first look lineup. What are your thoughts, and are you looking somewhere else possibly?
Yeah, this was a great setup for us to get a NFL caliber starting quarterback in a paced up in a good game script, right? They haven't won a game, so you assume they'll be playing from behind, which is always a good way to play quarterback. So if I had a veto, I wouldn't even dream of using it on this play. I can't click draft players soon enough. That price is very attractive. I actually only got through the quarterbacks before I ran out of time for our video today. So I do know that Andy Dalton is also priced down on a FanDuel at $6,000, which I believe is essentially their minimum for anybody that they think has the potential of starting and being somewhat successful. So Andy Dalton, wherever you want to play him, and I'm positive he's like $22, I want to say, on Yahoo or somewhere in that neighborhood. So um, it's really hard not to play him in a lot more than, like, I build a lineup with just about every quarterback. If there's more than 10 games, I'll probably bench a Haskins or something like that. So I'll probably end up having maybe 3 or 4 Andy Dalton lineups. And I think that he's the way to go. So I think that's awesome. Um,
Nice.
I'm going to take some of the savings that you gave, and I'm going to run with it. I really like Philip Lindsay at $5,000. I think he's underpriced. I'm going to bring him up here. He gets to play the Chargers. I think that the Chargers gave up a touchdown to both LaShawn McCoy and Darrell Williams when they played the Chiefs. And I think that Philip Lindsay's a better talent than both of them at this point in their careers. So with him being the lead back, I know he only got 13 attempts against Buffalo. Hopefully this offense is able to get going. I would gladly accept a veto on here if you know of a different play, because I saw this price point. He's $200 less than he was last week. He gets to play at home in a division game, and I just don't see the Chargers as a threat. If anything, you're going to want to run as many times as you can with Ingram and Bosa coming at you.
Yeah, and I am not vetoing that pick whatsoever. He actually is in my first look lineup build before we made this video for all the reasons you just mentioned. You can run on this Chargers defense. They are another team that's very good against the pass. Cortland Sutton, I believe, currently has a questionable tag on him right now. So for me, Philip Lindsay makes all the sense in the world. He is also the primary back. Royce Freeman will get his carries, but Lindsay's going to be on the field the majority of the time. And Lindsay also is the guy that has more pass catching ability. And a note on this is you look at his average, he's averaging like 13.6 points per game. But against the Chargers in his career, you can double that. He's averaging like 26 fantasy points per game versus the Chargers so far in his young career. And for anybody that watches my video or our videos on DFS Tavern, you know that I live in Colorado. And as of right now, where I am, there's probably about 6 inches of snow on the ground. And surprisingly, I live in the mountain, but the storm blew down from the north, and I'm more in the southern mountain. So I actually, even though I'm in the mountain, didn't get it that bad. The city in Denver got more than I did here in the mountain today. In the city, I want to say got upwards of about 8 inches. It is supposed to be sunny over the next few days. There is more snow coming in on Friday, possibly into Saturday morning, but clearing out Saturday. And then Sunday is showing that it's clear as well. But it's going to be cold Sunday for the game. The high, as of right now, the high for the forecast on Sunday is only looking at about mid-30s by the time kickoff starts. But by the time the game, is into halftime and in the third quarter, expect that to drop down into the 20s. And now you have a LA team coming into cold Colorado weather. Even though the sun will be out, it's going to be chilly. And the best thing to do in cold weather against a team that normally likes sunny and warm, I think, is smash mouth football and running the football. So I actually love Philip Lindsay this week. The only thing I would say to do, I mean, I know it's a first look lineup, but we always want to try and make sure we put our late game in the flex. So that's where I had him in my first look lineup. I moved Philip Lindsay into the flex spot this week.
Absolutely. I would have caught that later on, I assure you, because I 100% practice the same thing. Not everybody does, so it's definitely worth mentioning as many times. Always put your late game guys in the flex, and you can make some pivots as necessary. So great point.
Definitely. And, now that we have him in the flex, we've got 2 running back positions open. And I tried to be cute last week and not play him. And how many times have I mentioned this on podcasts as well as in our Discord chat is I don't care how expensive he is. You have to treat Christian McCaffrey as 2 players because he's running back 1 and wide receiver 1 all rolled up into 1. So take that $10,500 price tag and divide it by 2 because that's the way you treat him. So where else do you get a running back one and a wide receiver one for $5,250? So I'm not going to let that kick me in the butt again. I tried to get cute last week and go a little bit more balanced, and figured that I could get two guys in there that would give me the same, if not more, and didn't really work out. So I'm rolling Christian McCaffrey probably in almost 100% of my lineups this week. Don't carry $10,500. He's in a juicy matchup against the Washington Redskins at home. He should easily exceed value. So I'm throwing Christian McCaffrey into the first look lineup.
Yeah, I think that's a great call. If there's one thing guys like you and I should not do, it's try to get too cute. So I think that playing Christian McCaffrey at this cap of 10.5 is a great way of making sure that we don't get too cute.
Yeah, and I should add that, again, I'm from Colorado, and I've mentioned this in previous podcasts, especially golf. Not this season, because this season my business partner has had to go back to California to take care of his elderly parents. But for the last few seasons, our food truck is the food truck that sponsors every Valor Christian football game. And where did Christian McCaffrey go to high school? Valor Christian. So that's probably another reason it came back to haunt me last week. So I'm not going to do that again. So props to Christian McCaffrey and Valor Christian High School. He will be in all my lineups.
I think that's a great play. So I'm not going too far down. I wanted to save us some more salary, so I'm pausing here while I make a mental note of who I want to say. But I want to scroll and just double, triple check that I'm not missing any cheaper values that stand out as much as that guy did. Because like I said, I did not do my research in a timely manner. I waited until the last minute. You know what I noticed with Auden Tate being priced down here is, I think you mentioned it with when you're picking Andy Dalton, is that there's a sneaky chance that AJ Green may decide to come back. They're not giving detailed updates on what's going on and why he's not playing. It's just like they're waiting for him to be a full go, whatever that means. But I think Auden Tate's an interesting play down where he is. I think Tyler Boyd comes into play. This is a good opportunity for us to stack. So I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to isolate this game, go to the wide receivers, and then Boyd's at 5,500. He does get a lot of targets. Man, AJ Green is 6,000. Like I feel like if he comes back, he's going to be pretty close to healthy. Auden Tate should be out of the concussion protocol. Well, he played that. It's hard to look at his stats with. It's hard to play. It's hard to look at his stats with Finley. I mean, that's like the equivalent of being out with the concussion. So I'm gonna let you figure out who the stacking option is, if there is one, and I'm gonna go ahead and play Mr. Sammy Watkins. I think that he is in a great spot. His price point at 5,400 is more than reasonable. I think that this is a great opportunity for him to bounce back. It's been a while. I was on him when I should have been on Christian Kirk a couple weeks back, but there's no reason why he can't revert back. And look at this first game of the year against Jacksonville. 49 fantasy points, 11 receptions, 198 yards. I mean, even in the second game, he had 13 targets against 13 targets, and he only caught 6 of them. I don't know what was going on there exactly, but they're trying to get him the ball. Oakland is a pass funnel. He's underpriced, in my opinion. I do think that Sammy Watkins, with Tyreek Hill, still a little banged up. I know he's supposed to go, but I mean, that's a big discrepancy, 8,900 to 5,400 for the number 2 wide receiver, and arguably the best offense as far as the passing offense. So, they can be as optimistic as they want about Tyreek Hill, but not too often do you get to say, I feel a little safety with rostering Sammy Watkins at 5,400. And like I said, I'll defer to you on this if you think that there's a better play out there we should be looking at, but I like this.
Yeah, I do have Watkins down as one of the guys that is definitely going to be making some lineups for me this week. I'm definitely not paying $8,900 for Tyreek Hill. I'm actually hoping that he's going to be out, to be honest with you, because if he's out, that makes Watkins even that much more of an intriguing play, because we know that the Raiders are not good against the tight end. And if Watkins is out, or I should say, I'm sorry, if Tyreek Hill is out, I got to think that the Raiders are going to do everything they possibly can to negate Kelsey, which I think would open up the field for Watkins and Mecole Hardman if Tyreek Hill's unable to go. And I know that I'm reading, yes, they're optimistic about him, but I'm definitely hoping, and I mean, it's bad to say this, but I'm hoping he doesn't play.
Just pretend like you want it to be because you want him to get healthy.
Exactly. And there are a lot of, I think, good plays in this 5K range at wide receiver this week. I have obviously Boyd listed as the stack option with Dalton this week. I know that A.J. Green wants to play, especially now that the news came out that Dalton's going to be starting. But at this point, really, what do you got to play for if you're A.J. Green? Just get 100% healthy. The season's over, and just come back next season 100%. You know, they didn't trade him during the trading deadline, which I honestly thought they were going to do. But maybe the offers weren't there for him because he has had the injury issues. Maybe other teams just weren't offering enough for A.J. Green, and that's why he wasn't moved. But he's made it known he wants to be a part of this team. But at this point, just come back 100% healthy next year, and just take the rest of this season off. So for me, I'm looking at stacking Andy Dalton with Tyler Boyd this week in my first look lineup.
Perfect. I like that. And you know what? Even if A.J. Green does come back, who knows to say if he's 100%. If anything, he'll take some pressure off Tyler Boyd. And if we remember back, I know we had to think a little ways now to remember when Boyd and Green were both on the field. But Boyd was actually producing much better stats when Green was on the field, as he didn't have to carry the burden of being the number one wide receiver. So something else to be mindful of there. So I'm going to go to defense, and I don't have a defensive play in mind, but I'm going to stick with what I did last week that worked with me. I went cheap. I went cheap at defense, and I went cheap with the Bengals on DraftKings and the Redskins on FanDuel. And then even on Yahoo, I did a Redskins lineup just because I needed that extra dollar to really fall in love with my lineup. And it paid out. So I was happy to do that. And I haven't looked at defenses, so this is a little intimidating. Well, we know I won't be playing the Raiders against the Chiefs. I am not going to be playing the Giants against the Packers, as I think they're going to bounce back. Now, this Dolphins team, I'm not going to play them, but I do want to mention they got to be in consideration, right? Carson Wentz is playing with an injury. You know, if Alshon Jeffrey's out again and they're running out these third, fourth, fifth string wide receivers, Miami's at home. Miami's been playing with a lot more fight than I anticipated they would. This defense thing is getting harder. The Cardinals at home against the Rams is supposed to warrant some consideration, as bad as the Rams looked against the Ravens, but they're two completely different teams. We're not going to play the Redskins against the Panthers. I guess the first team that gets serious consideration would be the Browns at Pittsburgh, but I feel like Pittsburgh's going to have a chip on their shoulder. Maybe the Chiefs. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and defer to you. I'll let you go ahead and make your pick, whatever position it is, because I got nothing at defense right now. Nothing is standing out to me.
Yeah, again, I'm going to go back up to the running back position and fill out our first look at running back. And again, we want to try and find guys that are going to provide opportunities for volume. And this guy has come in and has gotten volume because this team primarily wants to run the football first and foremost. And we saw that Fournette actually had some success last week against the Titans. The Titans overall are not that bad of a defense against the run, but I'm going based off of sheer volume here. We already know Marlon Mack is out with a broken hand. So I'm rolling with Jonathan Williams at $5,300 to fill out our first look with our running back positions. We look at what he did over these last 2 weeks. Week 11 against Jacksonville, 13 carries for over 100 yards. And that Marlon Mack played in that game. That's the game that he broke his hand. And they ran for, I think, close to 300 yards in that game against Jacksonville as a team. And then he comes back the next week against Houston. And we know how good Houston is against the run. Houston hadn't allowed a 100-yard rusher since 2017. So he comes in and throws 26 carries for 104 yards. Not the best average in the world, but over 100 yards against the Houston Texans defense is impressive. And we saw he actually got a few targets as well in that game. 3 targets, 3 catches. So I'm going to roll him as our final first look running back this week based off of sheer volume. And I do think he can hit value or exceed value this week. What are your thoughts there?
No, I like this pick. I kind of skimmed over him and, it wasn't intentional. So there's something to be said about that. You could be getting somebody who's getting this large volume of work and is going to be lower owned than he should be. 26 carries, and you said it wasn't that high of an average. He was right at the benchmark. I mean, you want your running back to be at 4 yards a carry. That's exactly what he was. He got himself into the end zone. So with the bonus, he got over 20 fantasy points. That's a great call. I'm going to go ahead and put him in our running back spot in just a moment. But I did want to bring up and hear your thoughts on Kenyon Drake, because he was another guy that stood out to me. David Johnson did not get a touch. Drake got 16 carries, and he caught 6 of 7 targets. So we know how valuable those targets are. And against the Rams, it just looks like he's not going to get written out of the script, no matter how you slice it. We saw what he was able to do against San Francisco. He got 31 fantasy points. So on the off chance that he continues to see the work, which he does, I just wanted to see on a second look, looking at Kenyon Drake, because I'm deferring this week as I have not done my research, but he is definitely worth mentioning at 5,600. We're rolling with Jonathan Williams at 5,300 because of the higher floor. Is that what you're thinking?
That's what I'm thinking this week. And I definitely will have, I think, a couple builds with Kenyon Drake. We just saw the Rams get completely obliterated last night by Baltimore, and we saw Mark Ingram run for over 100 yards on I don't even remember. I think he hit 15 carries. I don't even remember how many carries he had, but I know he ran over 100 yards, had a touchdown on the ground as well as receiving. And Kenyon Drake, I want to say, kind of fits that same kind of mold as Mark Ingram. And it seems like the Cardinals might be phasing David Johnson off this team, and Kenyon Drake could become their primary back. And as good as a receiver as David Johnson is, we see Kenyon Drake is just as good as a receiver. So maybe they're looking for that guy. I want to say Kenyon Drake is probably more athletic and possibly fits the scheme of this fast-paced offense better. So he definitely is going to be looking like he's going to be sharing the majority of the snaps. So I have no objection to throwing Drake in a few of my builds this week. I just think that Williams, like you said, probably has the safer floor this coming week.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Higher ceiling Drake, higher floor Williams. I found my defense. I don't know if you're looking at the screen, but you see I filled out our defense there. The Baltimore Ravens get that Monday night bump. They got priced out before they just absolutely dominated the Rams. I'll be honest, I don't have the utmost of faith in Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he's an above average quarterback, but I mean, above average, that puts him somewhere between the 10th and 15th best quarterback. And if you'll notice at our lineup, look at all the home teams we got. I think that's awesome. I'm really liking the fact that our team, that's got to raise the floor of each individual player, where every single player so far is at home. I think this is a great spot. $2,800. The Ravens get to go back flying high. That defense was on the same page. I mean, when they say the secondary, they go through Humphreys. They talk about Marcus Peters playing well. They talk about even Brandon Carr is the third string cornerback, and then Earl Thomas in the second, the safety. They're unbelievably good in that part, and they're getting better up front. So this will be an interesting game to watch, just to see this rematch of a Super Bowl from a couple years back, as well as two teams that could both get to the Super Bowl this year. So I'm going to go ahead and play the team that's at home.
Yeah, I like that. And, typically, any of the viewers that watch us that might also watch Al Zeidenfeld, when he does his first look, he doesn't care what defense he throws in on his first look lineup. He always just throws in like a $3,000 defense. He just throws them in, doesn't even look at them. And, I watched his podcast, and he threw in the 49ers as his first look defense this week. Honestly, the 49ers are a really good defense. They're great against the pass. They are good against the run, but they're on the road. And I also like this Ravens defense. They've really started to come on over these last few weeks and have greatly improved. And if you look at their line scores, they have 5 straight games of double-digit fantasy points. And against, like you said, against the 49ers offense, who, yes, they got Kittle back, and Kittle immediately, was great in his first game back, over 100 yards receiving. Emmanuel Sanders managed to play that game. So, I mean, they have weapons, and I don't see the 49ers being able to run the ball whatsoever this week. They're going to have to throw the football. But to start the year, the Ravens were bad against the pass. But over these last few weeks, they have greatly improved against defending the pass. And that showed last night as well. I mean, Cooper Kupp had, I think, 6 catches, but they kept everything in front of him. He had 6 catches for 40 yards. Robert Woods had a decent night. But all in all, the defense did everything they needed to not let that Rams offense, score points. And I see that being the case this Sunday. And again, they're at home. So I love the Ravens, and I love them as a first look lineup. And I have a feeling they're going to be making a substantial amount of my lineups this week. For me, I'm going to try and fill out our wide receiver position. And obviously we're going to have to pay attention to weather forecasts, but as of right now, it's currently showing that it's going to rain in New York, but we'll keep watch on that. But for me, and we'll also have to pay attention to the wind. If it's just raining, I don't think it's that big of a deal. If wind comes into play, it's going to be a big deal. But as of right now, I can't overlook Davante Adams at $7,000. We have the money with the savings that we went to. The Giants are one of the worst defenses in the league against the pass. And what we want out of wide receivers is volume. And you look at the game logs, volume of Davante Adams, 12 targets, 10 targets, 11 targets, 15 targets. The guy is obviously the target monster. He is really the only wide receiver on this team that Aaron Rodgers trusts. He doesn't have the same weapons that he once had when he had Jordy Nelson on the team, Randall Cobb on the team. He has athletes when you look at on paper in Allison and Valdez-Scantling on paper are great athletes, but just being a great athlete is different than actually playing the games. They've had a couple games that they've stepped up in, but it's clear that I think really clear that Rodgers doesn't have the utmost faith in them. He actually is starting to build more faith in Lazard than he is with Scantling and Allison. So for that reason, I'm going to the guy he has the most amount of faith in with Davante Adams. What are your thoughts?
I mean, this is to choose an away game where the team plays so bad, it doesn't matter, is a great matchup because the Giants treat everybody like they're at home. You go to New York and they roll out the red carpet for you. They call it playing defense, but that's the red carpet if I've ever seen one. That's awesome, man. I really can't believe we're building $1 million lineup right now, and it's for free for everyone. So kudos for them. I hope they don't mind splitting it with the other 12 people watching this show. So. No, I'm actually I like a lot of these plays that we're coming up with. So that leaves us with $3,800 here at our tight end spot. I just want to read here what Delaney Walker. I'm not on Delaney Walker or anything. I just want to see. I know he's inactive. Okay, I was just wondering if there's any practice stuff, but it's too early in the week. So I haven't done as much research, like I said. So let me hear what you have to say about the tight end position with the money we have left and who you like.
Well, I mean, it sets up perfectly. If he finally can come back healthy this week, he's in a great matchup against the Colts. The Colts have always had issues defending the tight end. So if he's 100% healthy and he's able to play this week, then I wouldn't mind using that $3,800 on Delaney Walker. But until we get an actual tag that shows him being able to play this week, then obviously we have to look elsewhere. Jimmy Graham also at $3,800. But we already have Davante Adams in our lineup. So looking at this, it's almost like we're going to keep a few $100s on the table because, the one thing, again, the Chargers are pretty good at is defending the pass. So I'm not sure if I trust Noah Fant, or I probably should say I don't know if I trust Brandon Allen that much. Gesicki, another guy, when you look on paper, especially with his combine scores, another freak athlete. But again, athleticism and actually playing the game are two different things. And the Eagles are actually pretty good at defending the tight end, so I probably don't really trust Gesicki. We already see that, Kittle's back, so how much playing time is Dwelly going to see on the field? And I think he's too expensive now at $3,500. Unfortunately, Njoku's still on the IR. If Njoku was healthy, I wouldn't mind going there because Pittsburgh's not that great at defending the tight end. McDonald, I think, was heavily owned last week and was a huge letdown last week. And I think this is probably a game that I'm going to be staying away from entirely this week, this Cleveland-Pittsburgh game, because who knows what might happen. I have a feeling that Hodges has been named the starting quarterback, I believe, in this game, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't know how much I can trust Hodges. Jonnu Smith, great athlete again, but they use him mainly, I think, more as a blocking tight end. Occasionally will go out. So what that leaves me with is Jack Doyle against Tennessee. Eric Ebron was placed on IR, so Jack Doyle is the tight end. He is the number one tight end now. I'm sure Mo Alley Cox will be on the field on several occasions with Ebron on the IR because the Colts do like to utilize two tight ends, but Doyle is clearly the receiving guy between those guys. So based off of what we have left as a first look lineup, it seems like Doyle to me makes the most amount of sense. What are you thinking here?
Oh, I mean, exactly. I hadn't scrolled down yet until you started going through the plays. But once you got to Vance McDonald and I realized that you weren't going to say him, I went ahead and scrolled down, and I think Jack Doyle's a great play. So $500 on the table if you wanted to. The only pivot was going from Jonathan Williams to Kenyon Drake. But you had enough money to do that if you want. And I like having Jack Doyle and Williams. Got some play action that you can do and a lot of different things. So.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if people want to be a little bit more balanced and they don't want to pay up to Devontae Adams, if they wanted to be more balanced, we see if we take Adams out, we have an average of 5,400 per play. So, I mean, if you wanted to be more balanced, obviously you could throw Darren Waller in as your tight end at 5,500. I mean, we know the Chiefs.
Yeah,
we know
I got my little sleeping baby. I guess it was a little louder than I expected. So you make some good points. I think we'll wrap it up on this note, if that's good with you.
Yeah, I think I like where that first look lineup is right now, and there's nothing wrong with leaving a few $100s on the table.
Absolutely. So from both of us over here, we're going to say good night to you, and be sure to check us out, David at DFS Tavern, and then also on Armchair Sports Talk on YouTube and Facebook. You got anything else, David?
No, nothing else. I think we're set, and it was great doing this on Armchair Sports and get that publicity and more talk on the street with Armchair Sports out there, and hopefully grows more viewers each and every week for you guys.
That's right. All right, guys. You have a good one. Good luck in week 13.
Yes, good luck. Make that money.
Perfect. I got to hit stop recording.